6th of December was a TPLF Western setup. Cameroon ready to host African Cup of Nations on Sunday, 3 years later than initially planned. Good evening to you all. Welcome to ETV News. I am Grum Tariku. Ethiopian Defense Chief of Staff General Birhanu Jula was awarded the rank of Field Marshal in a ceremony held today. He became the first Ethiopian officer to be promoted to the rank of Field Marshal. Other senior military officers were also given promotion in honor of their distinguished achievement at the war front. Accordingly, 4 military officers were promoted to the rank of General, 14 officers to the rank of Lieutenant General, 24 officers to the rank of Major General, and 58 officers to the rank of Brigadier General. President Sahle-Work Zewde awarded the ranks to the officers nominated by Abiy Ahmed, Commander-in-Chief of the Ethiopian Armed Forces. The Ministry of Justice said the government's measure of releasing some prisoners is a step in the right direction for all-inclusive national dialogue. The measure, says the ministry, also depicts the government's show of gesture in respect of humanity for citizens. Shagao Yamatao brings up to the speed.
Legal cases involving politicians and their followers have to be resolved not only by a regular justice system, but also by the Transitional Renaissance Package. The remark came here today when Minister of Justice Gideon Timotheos briefed the Ethiopian news agency on yesterday's release of some prisoners. On his brief, Gideon said releasing prisoners who have been indicted for committing various crimes is undertaken by a legislative body, while the pardon is given by the Pardon Board after being signed by the President. As a result, the release of prisoners is neither amnesty nor pardon, he said, but discontinuance of their court cases. The decision to release prisoners is applicable for detainees under 2 different files, namely Iskender Nega and Jawar Mohammed. Expounding on why the government decided to free high-profile prisoners, the minister said the 2 politicians and those being tried in the same files enjoy a large number of followers, adding the inclusion of these groups is vital for a fruitful national dialogue. The minister also went on explaining the release of high-profile former Tigray state officials under the file of Debretsion Gabramikael. The 6 individuals were released due to bad health and old age, he said. The 6 individuals were not the members of the terrorist PLF, Gideon said, adding the prosecution of other defendants in the same file will continue. Underlining the need for transitional justice, Gideon said such measures will help the country ensure better justice and inclusion of all groups. National dialogue is an indispensable tool to discuss and resolve the many challenges of the country, he pointed out. The dialogue, he said, paves the way for real democracy. The minister further noted since conflicts are created by politicians and the society, it needs to come up with a resolution by the National Dialogue Committee so that society avoids the vicious circle of revenges.
It's about 9 a.m. this morning. We're here at the most famous church here in Lalibela, St. George's Church, and you can see it down below.
Merry Christmas.
A new video of the EU Parliament, a December 6 briefing attended by 600-plus delegation, providing context to the UNHCR's 70th December meeting and in which TPLF involvement and lobbying is strongly indicated, has been released. The video has details providing that this meeting was a setup showing TPLF Western coordinated works against the Ethiopian government. Habtam Ashagre tells us more on this.
It is to be recalled that the United Nations Human Rights Council held a special session on Ethiopia at the request of the EU. This so-called special session came weeks after the joint report of the United Nations Human Rights Commission and the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission, which found no evidence of genocide in Tigray. But since the report displeased the Western powers, who wanted every pretext to arm twisting, the special session was meant to legitimize a second wave of intervention in Ethiopia's internal affairs. African representatives backed by China, Turkey, South Korea and others rejected the proposal, which was approved by a simple majority. This morning, video of an important EU Parliament briefing held on December 6 was released by one of its two hosts, French MEP of Greece, Michel Ravisi, on her personal YouTube channel. This is the invite. The speaking list was a close look. According to the video, 4 of these speakers were added at last minute. Sadly, 3 of the speakers, namely Maza Gebremedhin, Gannat Uni Prof. John Nason and Leiden Uni Professor Mirjam van Resen were strongly pro-TPLF. The day after the briefing, December 7th, Professor Mirjam posted this tweet, which completely misrepresents the content of the briefing. No conclusions were made. It was a briefing, not a meeting, and contained mostly sober, sensible speakers providing facts. The so-called meeting, which was more or less a briefing, announced its consensus that Tigray war started before November 4, 2020, and that it was planned long before. It also concluded that Eritrea played a key role and has committed atrocious crimes in Tigray with impunity. According to Thompson, not only is Mirjam's assertion there was some kind of consensus found incorrect, but at the end of the briefing, the EU Special Rep for the Horn of Africa said, "What is clear is that there is a real divide and not even any overlap between the positions of briefers." Pekka Haavisto, Foreign Minister of Finland and EU's envoy to Ethiopia, has emerged with a white lie in which the top EU diplomat alleged that Ethiopian leaders told him in February of their intent to wipe out the Tigrans.
For me, particularly the news of the violence against the women is incredible and something that probably not has happened in any wars or conflict in that region. Maybe a word about what is the aim of Ethiopia. When I met the Ethiopian leadership in February, they really used this kind of language that they are going to destroy the Tigrayans, they are going to wipe out the Tigrayans for 100 years and so forth, which for me referred to very serious human rights atrocities and crimes as well. If you wipe out your national minority, what is it? It's you cannot destroy all the people, you cannot destroy all the population in Tigray, and I think that's very obvious that we have to react and because it looks for us like ethnic cleansing. It is a very, very serious act if this is true.
As part of the TPLF lobbying, 4 speakers were added to the lineup. One of these was founder of Addis Standard, Tadale Lema. Ethiopian diaspora representatives requested that Amhara and Afar voices be represented, but it did not happen. Rather, following confusions on the part of the human rights community, Daniel Bekele, chief commander of Ethiopian Human Rights Commission, pulled out but sent a replacement. Also, UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Michelle Bachelet was listed as a speaker but didn't attend. On coup, the day before the so-called special meeting, the Amnesty International released matching news released purporting to be an investigation report, and the Washington Post report suddenly appeared on the scene. From all this, it is very hard not to conclude that by the end of November, this meeting had become part of a coordinated effort by the EU to call for a very controversial special meeting, which was held on December 17. As can be recorded, this meeting took place while the TPLF was retreating rapidly and fits the consistent pattern of the UN, EU, US sending the TPLF a lifeline in such circumstances. The meeting was also peculiar as it adopted a resolution which undermined the working partnership between the OHCHR and Ethiopia's Human Rights Commission, which could have easily been asked to continue and expand its work, but wasn't.
The resistance of Ethiopians from all walks of life against the aggression of TPLF is unveiling diverse benefits and anti-African sentiment of the TPLF. This Ethiopian war against TPLF is said to be African war, vital to prevent the virus of ethnic fragmentation from becoming an African pandemic. The war is also bringing out democratic consequences. Tigist Risa presents the following account.
Given the horrendous loss in human life and property that the TPLF war of destruction inflicted on the Afar and Amhara regions, one may find it strange to think that the war has benefited that Ethiopians must put to good use. Amongst the benefits are, the war has exposed the anti-African nature of the TPLF, providing Ethiopia with political assets beneficial for its present and future diplomatic dealings with African countries. And the TPLF war has created conditions that reinforce democracy in Ethiopia. What TPLF was interested in is not federalism, but maintaining Ethiopia as a collection of ethnic groups, opening the door to an eventual return to power through its time-tested practice of ethnic divide and rule, or to an eventual secession of Tigray. The ethnic politics that the TPLF espouses is profoundly anti-African. This becomes clear when one considers the TPLF in the context of African history and politics. TPLF's logic of ethnic federalism brings out unwittingly that Ethiopia's war against TPLF is Africa's war, necessary to prevent the virus of ethnic fragmentation from becoming an African pandemic. Though ruinous, the war demonstrates that Ethiopia is, as the country has always been, the defender of sovereignty, integrity of African countries, and the determined opponent of anti-Africanism. This is surely an important post-war benefit that Ethiopia reaps from TPLF's aggression. The democratic consequences of the TPLF war started when Ethiopian soldiers from different regions fighting side by side to defend Ethiopia from the TPLF's project to dismantle the country, discovered in the trenches their commonly shared Ethiopian identity and interests. In the trenches of the war were thus demolished the ethnic barriers and divisions that the TPLF cultivated and institutionalized during its 27 years in power. The TPLF's aggression meant to destroy Ethiopia, thus gave birth to new forms of trans-ethnic empathy, solidarity, and fraternity. The very process of TPLF's disguised political participation affirms the exclusion of Ethiopians as active political agents, freely choosing the kind of society they would like to create and live in. It was a congenitally anti-democratic procedure whose purpose was to ensure TPLF's domination of the Ethiopian state and economy. However, the TPLF's war against Ethiopia has sounded the death knell of inter-passive participation, of its culture of exclusion, and of its underlying ethnic politics. Both in Ethiopia and in the diaspora, Ethiopians have become the initiators, authors, imaginers, organizers, and implementers of activities dedicated to goals that they themselves have identified and defined. The emergency of these democratic elements as responses to TPLF's aggression tells us that there's no going back to the dark days of inter-ethnic division and alienation.
Hands off Ethiopia. Don't interview with the government. Let them do their job. And if we need help, if the government of Ethiopia needs help, they will ask for it.
There's no going back to inter-passive participation and political exclusions. In its war against Ethiopia, the TPLF has pulled out all stops and will continue to do so to represent itself as a victim of genocide and atrocities, and to mobilize against Ethiopia the international media, American and the European politicians and Western NGOs. The record shows that up to now that the Ethiopian government has been outmaneuvered in the information war. It has failed to explain and defend Ethiopia's cause proactively, methodically, persuasively, and vigorously. Perhaps we need to listen to the advice of Reinhold Niebuhr. The preservation of a democratic civilization requires the wisdom of the serpent and the harmlessness of the dove. Only then could Ethiopians cap the present military victory with a political one and allow flourishing the democratic culture that they have created in their resistance to TPLF's aggression.
Called Gonda Town. I've never even heard of that town before I got here. And she was like, okay, let's check out this town. The only problem was that this town was 12 hours away from Addis by road. And it landed in Gonda Town. He told us about a place called Simien Mountains, and boy, this place is another thing on its own.
The name of this place is called Buitras. We are very close to the highest lodge in Africa.
Hey guys, just got to the restaurant now. Oh, he's writing VIP. Yeah. So guys, he's writing VIP on this mix. VIP. Yes. Guys, this is raw meat. Raw meat.
Some diaspora members called upon their homecoming compatriots to focus on activities that can change the current situation of Ethiopia and its people. ETV talked to Lieutenant Amsalu Haile, who returned to Ethiopia a few months back to join their compatriots fighting the terrorist TPLF on the front lines. Take a look.
Lieutenant Amsalu Haile lived in the U.S. for slightly over 2 decades before returning to his homeland a few months ago. He arrived here after organizing friends and colleagues in the diaspora to pitch in for the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. Amsalu stated that he was a member of the former Ethiopian Armed Force who found themselves kicked out by the TPLF for no reason other than serving the Marxist Derg. He was left with no option but to go abroad in search of a better life. When the TPLF attempted to unleash an era of terror after its treasonous attack against the northern command of the Ethiopian army, Amsalu decided that it was time to pay his dues for dear motherland.
I have decided to fight TPLF in the war front after learning that the likes of the US and its allies have been unduly pressuring Ethiopia to return the tourist TPLF to federal power. Of course, my contribution may not make much of a difference, but the decision boosted my morale in being able to help safeguard the sovereignty of my nation.
Amsalu appreciated the commitment of patriotic Ethiopians, including the former Ethiopian soldiers, to sacrifice their lives for their nation.
I have been to countless battlefronts and spent quite a lot of time motivating Ethiopian soldiers by sharing our military experience back in these days. Currently, all Ethiopians here and abroad have been showing their commitment and solidarity in all dimensions to ensure the sovereignty of the country. This is remarkable, and I am proud as an Ethiopian.
Amsalu also commended Ethiopians in the diaspora for supporting their country in times of its needs, particularly by rehabilitating affected people and reconstructing destroyed infrastructure.
It's now time for weather update. Let's have a look.
So the Red Sea is actually on the other side of Djibouti. This is the Gulf of Aden, so across from here would be Yemen, the south coast of Yemen. This is the Djibouti railway station. It's the end of the line from Addis Ababa. Some Arabic writing on the side of the buildings down here. It's the I Love Djibouti sign right outside of the post office. Pretty colorful. They put a lot of work into this. A lot of French brands here. So there's a Leader Price supermarket that I saw when I was in Paris. So this is Place Menelik, and there's tons of old French colonial architecture all around. So it's really beautiful actually over here. That's really beautiful though, eh? Yeah. Is that made from is it coral? Yeah. Coral building. Yeah, ah, really beautiful. Yeah.
Orthodox Christians around the world celebrated Christmas amid coronavirus concerns. In Eritrea, His Holiness Abuna Carlos V, Patriarch of the Eritrean Orthodox Tewahedo Church, gave benediction in connection with Christmas. Egypt's Orthodox Christians also celebrated Christmas in new capital. Meanwhile, Orthodox Christians in Russia, Serbia, and other countries observed Christmas on Friday amid restrictions aimed at dampening the spread of the coronavirus. But few worshippers appeared concerned as they streamed into churches on Christmas Eve. Let's have a look at the following account.
His Holiness Abuna Carlos V, Patriarch of the Eritrean Orthodox Tewahedo Church, also congratulated and wished Eritrean nationals at home and abroad and the faithful a happy Christmas and a year of peace and development. The Patriarch also called on the faithful to extend hands to the sick and needy and reinforced contribution in the nation-building process. His Holiness further called on the public to respect the guidelines issued by the Ministry of Health to contain the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic. In Egypt, the spiritual leader of the Coptic Orthodox Church, Pope Theodorus II, led Christmas Mass on Thursday night in the Cathedral of the Nativity of Christ in Egypt's new capital in the desert east of Cairo. Egypt's President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi attended on Thursday the Christmas Mass ceremony held by the Egyptian Coptic Orthodox Church at the Nativity of the Christ Cathedral at the new administrative capital. In addition to worshippers, numerous political, religious, media and other public figures attended the ceremony amid strict precautions against the coronavirus. Meanwhile, Orthodox Christians in Russia, Serbia and other countries are observing Christmas amid restrictions aimed at dampening the spread of the coronavirus. The majority of Orthodox believers celebrate Christmas on January 7 with midnight service, especially popular. At Moscow's huge Christ the Savior Cathedral, church leader Patriarch Kirill and other gold-robed priestesses chanted prayers and waved smoking containers of incense during a midnight service. The holiday is preceded by a strict 40-day fast, which lasts from November 28 to January 6.
Here comes the long-awaited African Cup of Nations. The host nation is rallying under the name Team Indomitable Lions, measures up to the likes of reigning champion Algeria and Sadio Mane of Senegal and Mohamed Salah of Egypt. Cameroon was supposed to be the host nation in 2019 before being stripped of the tournament due to the delays in its preparations. Egypt replaced it in the 33rd Cup of Nations and was then postponed last year because of the pandemic. The Central African country of 27 million people was therefore determined to press on with the competition amid reports last month that leading European clubs wanted it postponed again due to COVID-19 concerns. Well, this time it does go ahead starting Sunday when Cameroon take over Burkina Faso in Yaoundé. We wish the Ethiopian squad all the best, and over now to a reminder of the headlines. Video proves that EU Parliament meeting on the 6th of December was a TPLF Western setup. Cameroon ready to host African Cup of Nations on Sunday, 3 years later than initially planned. Well, you have been watching ETV News. Thanks for joining us and have a pleasant evening.